Recovery presents Facing Addiction Podcast.
We have a whole generation that we've lost to fentanyl. Just last year, 100,000 people.
You know, even though I didn't want to believe that it was happening or
to respond in healthier ways so that we could give them the best chance that we could.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Facing Addiction Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Tisdale, the founder and CEO of Pinnacle Peak Recovery. On this episode, I'm sitting down with Christin Day, who is an art therapist at Art of Our Soul with Brandon Lee. She also has an incredible story from the depths of addiction to using her experience to benefit others. Christin, welcome to the show. If you could just tell us a little bit about your story, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now.
Absolutely. My name's Christin Day. My sobriety date is 11/22/17. Man, what it was like. So childhood, growing up, my parents were in the military. My dad was. We moved around a lot. I would get comfortable. We'd move around, get comfortable. We'd move around. My parents ended up getting divorced when I was 9. And I went and lived with my mom for a little bit. And I was a hellion, you know, I caused a lot of chaos in life. So my mom got sick of it and she sent me to my dad's. And my dad started, you know, getting married and having more children with another woman. And I'm like, oh, you're not my mom. I don't have to listen to you.
Yeah.
And I'd go over there and I'd cause chaos. And my dad's like, no, you got to go back to your mom. So I went back and forth for a while, you know, and that was rough growing up.
Where was this at?
So I was born in Fort Hood, Texas, and then we moved to Michigan, and then we moved to Colorado, Fort Carson, Colorado, and then I moved back to Michigan with my mom, and then in '96 I moved here to Arizona. I did a little back and forth, two more times. To Colorado and then back to Arizona, and I finally stayed here in '96 with my mom, and yeah, it was crazy. I went to Deer Valley High School, Skyhawks, yay. But I got kicked out sophomore year. I brought a knife to school to stab a girl because I don't know how to use, you know, my words, and so I got expelled and I went to the charter school across the street for the fuck ups. And then I started having sex at a young age and I got pregnant at 14 and I ended up having an abortion. And then I got pregnant when I was 16 and I'll show my age right now because Metro Center was the hangout. Rest in peace, Metro Center.
I don't even know what that is.
You don't know what Metro Center is?
No,
the mall.
The
Metro Center
which
Mall.
One is it?
Off of I-17 in Peoria.
Oh yeah, I don't know about it.
Oh my gosh, that was the hangout back in the day.
Just in the parking lot?
No, the mall. Actually, like we would skip school and go there and hang out and smoke weed and and party, you know. So a lot of my story, like I can put the drugs and alcohol down, but men were my number one addiction, you know, and I had daddy issues and trying to fill that void. And so I got pregnant at 16 and I had met this guy at Metro Center and I was walking up the escalator. He was walking down. I was like, oh, you have a nice butt. And before you know it, I'm knocked up. I mean, it's that simple, you know, like I walk by you, I get pregnant. You look at me, I get pregnant. I was very fertile. And I drank the water and I got pregnant. So I went to my parents and told them, like, listen, like I'm pregnant again and I want to keep the baby. And I had caused so much chaos in my parents' life that when I told them that I was pregnant again and that I wanted to get married to this guy, my parents are like, where do I sign? You know, you're his problem now. And
how old were you?
16.
Dang.
Yeah. So in my mind, like everything's gonna be great, you know, and I'm gonna have this baby and we're gonna get married and life's gonna be beautiful. He joined the military and it's crazy because now I look back at it and he got stationed at Fort Hood. And so I got to go there, you know, 17 years later as a Army wife and get stationed there and be an Army wife and live on base and stuff. And it was crazy. But Before any of that, like, marriage was hard. 16 years old, like, I had no reason. I had no,
Yeah,
I was a kid. I'm a kid. You know what I mean? I don't know how to be a wife and be a mom. And then there was a lot of infidelity. And before my son was born, I ended up trying to cut my husband's dick off. And literally,
Was it with like a knife?
Oh, yeah, with a butcher knife. And I was like this, and I had it like this. And
oh, gosh.
Yes. And he's squirming, and the cops show up, and they're like, what happened? And I was like, well, he was sticking his thing in things he shouldn't have. And they were like, okay. And so there was a lot, there was a lot behind all that, the trauma and everything that I went through. And I ended up having a miscarriage at 6 months. And that really put me into a downward spiral. I'm dealing with mourning my son, that, I had a nursery, everything built for him. And now I have to deal with my husband and his infidelity and us separating. He goes to Fort Hood and I stay here. And again, I'm just suppressing the feelings with drugs and alcohol. And he calls me 2 months later and he's like, listen, like, we got married. We're married. Like, let's make this work. I had nothing going here for me. I had graduated a year and a half early, like, but I had nothing going. So I upped and left and went to Fort Hood, and within a month and a half, I got pregnant again. And again, like, in my delusional mind, I'm thinking the baby's going to fix our marriage and we're going to have a great life. And, growing up, like, I got to see Germany and all these things. And like, I lived in Germany from the time I was 1 until I was 4. I spoke German before I spoke English.
Oh, wow.
And, in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm going to be this military wife and we're going to travel the world. And it just wasn't like that. I got over there and he started cheating on me again. And now I'm away from my parents and I don't know what to do. And it was really hard. And I, about 9 months pregnant, he had gotten dishonorably discharged from the military. Doesn't care, they don't care if your wife's 9 months pregnant, about to pop, like, they take your benefits, her benefits, and kick you out. This is the 3rd time that he had gotten drug charges. And so I call my mom and I'm crying and I'm like, listen, like, I want to come home and I want to just give birth to my son and be the best mom possible. So my mom flies to Texas to come and get me. And I moved back here to Arizona. And I do good. I file for divorce. I got divorced at 19. And within 2 weeks of me being here, I had my son. And I did good for a little bit. And I got a full ride scholarship to ASU West for elementary education, and
really?
I was working 3 jobs.
You were smart. You graduated. Well, you are smart. But yeah, you did good in school. You graduated early. You got a scholarship.
I didn't want to be a statistic.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to be like, oh, I got pregnant. And I see these girls now like, oh, I got pregnant and I have to quit school and I can't do this. Like, I went to a teen parenting school, I found a teen parenting school that I literally took the bus from 51st Avenue in Union Hills all the way to 3rd Avenue in Roosevelt every day. Because I was dedicated to getting that high school diploma, So I got the scholarship to ASU West, and I was doing good and working 3 jobs, and I moved out of mommy and daddy's and got my own apartment and out in Surprise. And I got introduced to some guys out there in El Mirage, and at first it was just like, don't ask any questions, like, you'll just make some extra money, drop off your car here, and drop your car off here and pick it up. And so I was transporting stuff, and then I got in over my head, You know, I started transporting stuff to California, and then I'd started going over the border, and yeah, you know, and I wasn't doing it at that time, you know, but I was exhausted. I was doing this on the weekends to make extra money to make, you know, ends meet with my kid, and making sure that I could raise him because I wasn't getting child support or anything like that. And I was tired. And then they're like, oh, just do a little bump of this and you'll be fine. And before you know it, I'm doing meth every day, you know? And I, yeah, man, it took me quick. The house got raided. I got kicked out. I ended up, you know, losing my job, losing the scholarship. And I gave my parents temporary guardianship of my son. So I didn't want to drag him through all that, you know. And then I ended up pregnant again, you know. And this time it was like, now I'm pregnant with a little girl, and I can't stop doing meth every day. And sometimes God does for us what we can't do for ourselves. And I was 6 months pregnant, and I got arrested for doing, I sold 2 ounces of meth to an undercover cop. And they frown upon that,
yeah,
you know, especially being pregnant. And yeah, so I ended up in Estrella. And my mom had started going to like these Al-Anon classes and like learning about tough love and not enablingly. Like my mom was my biggest supporter, but my biggest enabler. You know, I could always call my mom. My mom would always be there. And this time around, it was like, you know, I'm calling her from jail. Please, Mom, get me out. And she's like, click. And I'm like, who is she learning these things from? You know, like what the hell's going on? And in my delusional mind, like my baby's dad loves me and he's going to get me out of this. And he could have cared to anything. He didn't care at all. So my parents finally bonded me out. They let me sit in there for about 3 months. And I finally got out. And it was, the stipulation was I had to find a rehab to go to that I could take the baby. So my son is taken care of by my parents, but this new baby that I'm about to have, they weren't taking responsibility for her. You know, it's my responsibility. And if I'm going to keep her, this is what I need to do. So I find a place, it's called LifeWell now, where you can take your child. And my first experience with God was, you know, this little girl coming out. She was 3 weeks early, 9 pounds, 22 and a half inches long, and not a trace of meth in her.
That's still big.
It's huge.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, oh my God, if I would have really went full term and had this baby, she probably would have been 11 pounds.
Yeah.
You know? And like I said, no, I did meth until I was 6 months pregnant. So I'm like, oh my gosh. Came out perfect though. 10 fingers, 10 toes. You know what I mean? Like it could have went any which way. And I'm super blessed. I wish that I could say I stayed sober. You know, I did good for a little bit. I did rehab for, you know, like less than a month because I didn't want to be there. I was doing it for mommy and daddy. And my daughter was born December 17th, so Christmas time, family can come to the rehab and bring you presents. And my mom comes and she's like, oh God, this place is gross. And I'm like, yeah, they have bed bugs. And she's like, pack your shit, let's go. And I'm like, sweet. You know, I found a loophole, I'm out of there.
Yeah.
So I go to mommy and daddy's, and the stipulation is that I have to go to meetings. So I get introduced to Crystal Meth Anonymous, and I start going to meetings. And like I said, I'm on like this whole fuck men thing because men are my problem. So I'm going to become a lesbian. It fixes all the problems. I don't recommend it at all. Bitches are crazy. But I meet this girl and like we click, you know, like it's a trauma bond, you know. She's a single mom and I'm a single mom, and we have these babies and we're going to these meetings and we just click, you know, and it's awesome. And she's a stripper, and I would go to the strip club with her, and you know, and we would rob dudes because again we're on this whole fuck men thing. And we drop the kids off at the babysitter's, and she's disappearing for like 30, 45 minutes. And I'm like, I know what you're doing. Like, I have no coping skills at this time. So I'm like, you're getting high, like bust out, I want to be on your level with you. and I get high, and that little girl, she's getting in the way of me getting high. And unfortunately, what gets in the way of me getting high, I get rid of. So I gave her up for adoption. The lady that I was dropping her off, the babysitter, she's a close family friend, and I asked her and her husband to adopt my daughter, and it's an open adoption. She knows that I'm her mom. They're a huge part of my recovery today. Like, I don't know where I would be without them, because they've opened their house to me numerous times to help me get sober and to get back on my feet. And I'm just super blessed to have them.
Yeah.
She's 19 now. She's doing big things. And again, like I said, I wish that I could say that I stayed sober and did good, but I didn't, but this time, so we're doing the whole strip club thing, and I meet this biker and tattoos, and he owns a tattoo shop, and he's 45 and I'm 23, and I love him, it's the love of my life. And I drop the stripper and I get with him, and I do good for a little bit, and we have this little townhouse in North Phoenix, and we're doing good, and I stopped doing meth, and I'm seeing both of my kids on the regular, and I get pregnant again. And again, in my delusional mind, like, a baby's gonna make everything great, and we're gonna have this beautiful life, and I'm gonna stay sober, and I'm gonna do good. And he's going home on the weekends to California to check on the tattoo shop, and he's going to check on his wife and 2 kids. So that really smacked me in the face, and now I'm pregnant again, and I'm bringing this child into the world. And I call my daughter's adopted parents and ask them, can you just let me live there for a little bit, let me get on my feet and get situated. And they opened their house to me, and I had my second daughter, and like I said, I did good for a little bit, but 2-3 months down the road, I started getting high again. My downfall was my weight. I've always been a bigger girl, so I know that if I do meth, I can get rid of the baby weight, I'll be fine. And I'm only gonna do it for 30 days. I'm gonna lose 20, 30 pounds and I'll be fine. And I'm doing it every day.
That's the insanity.
Exactly.
We talk about in step 2. It's like, came to believe in a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. It's like the insane thinking.
Right.
I'm laughing because I definitely have had my fair share, more than fair share. All of us have, but that's a good one.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm just going to go on a 30-day meth diet.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And you hook you up to a lie detector test, it's like you would probably pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, in our delusional minds, like, that's really what, I'm only going to do it for a little bit just to lose a little bit of weight and I'll be fine. And
yeah. What ended up happening?
So I meet another guy and I get married, and totally, it's traumatic, and I get high again, and now I'm dragging this new little girl through all this, and I do the Suboxone maintenance for a little bit, and I stopped doing meth, and I'm just drinking every once in a while, and doing Suboxone because I was taking pills, and and I can't stop, the Suboxone maintenance, I pay this undercover doctor $100 every visit, and I get like 120 Suboxone. And
you're selling someone?
Oh yeah, for sure. Or giving my husband some so that he can be okay, and we did that for a little bit. But I was on 32 milligrams of Suboxone for almost 2 years, and
Dang.
Yeah, a lot. And that come down is way worse than heroin. Like, I hadn't even touched heroin at this point yet.
Yeah.
So 2015, you know, I'm dragging this little girl through everything and abusive relationships, and I get divorced and I go to another guy because that's my solution to everything. And I'm in this abusive relationship, and I'm neglecting my daughter, and my little sister went to DCS and filed some temporary guardianship paperwork. And because I didn't have my other 2 children, they didn't look into anything. They just took her, you know. So now I'm fighting this DCS case in 2015, and my family's like really washed their hands of me, like we're done. You know, I'm in this abusive relationship and I can't get away from the guy because he's my drug. And I have like a moment of clarity, and in October of 2015, I finally go to treatment that, you know, willingly, like I want to do this.
Yeah.
And I go to Native American Connections, and I do a 45-day program there, and I did 90 days IOP, and like, I'm a bougie ass drug addict. Like, you got me fucked up if you think I'm taking the light rail or the bus or anything like that. Like, I'll steal your car or your motorcycle before I do any of that. And God humbled me really quick. You know, he put me right at 14th Street in Van Buren, and you're getting on that bus every day, and then you're going to take it down to the light rail, and you're going to get on that light rail, and you're going to go to IOP and do what you need to do. And I did good, you know. I got away from the guy for a little bit, and I was focusing on my DCS case with my daughter, and I got cocky. You know, I graduated IOP and I went home to mommy and daddy's because that's what we do. And I got cocky, like, oh, I don't need to go to that meeting today. Like, oh, I got this. Oh, I don't need to call my sponsor. And I was 3 weeks away from my reunification date with my kid, and I ended up with a needle in my arm. 3 weeks, you know, and it sucked. It sucked, you know, and I had so much guilt and so much shame. Like, I allowed all this to happen, and I had lost everything from a matter in 2015. When I got introduced to the needle, it was 32 days. I lost the house, the car, and the kid.
Wow.
So, you know, so I have all this guilt and all this shame from, you know, losing my kid and getting high and being that close to having her back in my care. And I go out for another 1.5 years, you know, and I'm like, fuck everybody. I just want to die. I don't want to live this life anymore. And I'm in this abusive relationship where this man is telling me, like, you're a piece of shit. You're not a good mom. You deserve this, you know, like, your kids don't deserve you, and you should die. And you start believing those things, you know. And I can remember doing like the hotel thing, the hotel hopping, and I would shoot up so much meth and so much heroin to kill myself. And I'd wake up in the morning with the needle in my arm, like screaming, like, why am I still here? You know, like, why can't you just take me? I don't want to live this life anymore. And I know now, like, it's because I have a purpose, you know. I know all those times that God didn't take me because my purpose here is to help other alcoholics and addicts.
Yeah.
So 2017, I finally had like a moment of clarity, like, either you're going to get your shit together or you're going to die with the needle in your arm. And I didn't want to die like that, you know. This time around, when I jumped back in, it was like I knew what I needed to do. You know, I knew I wasn't doing it for DCS this time. I wasn't doing it to appease my family. Like, I was doing it for myself. Yeah. You know, kids are a good motivator, but you can't do it for them. I promise you, you won't stay sober. And so I really started focusing on myself and who I was and what I wanted in life. And I jumped back in with both feet, and I got service commitments, and I was all over the place, you know, from Casa Grande to Surprise. Like, I was going to meetings everywhere. And yeah, and my life from sun up to sundown was recovery. And it still is today, and I'm 5.5 years sober, but, you know, I've learned to find a balance now. And I knew that no matter what this time around, like I wasn't doing it so that I could get my kids back. I was doing it solely for myself. So I really took some time to not go into dating and doing it, you know, like, unfortunately, as addicts, sometimes we want that instant gratification, like, hey, I'm 90 days sober, I want to see my kids.
Yeah.
But you don't think about, like, bitch, you've promised these kids all these things for the last 5 years, and they're sick of hearing your shit, you know? So I didn't see my daughter that I lost from DCS. I didn't see her for 3 years. And I knew that when the time was right, God was going to place her back in my life. You know, I was almost 2 years sober. In September of 2019, I finally got to see her. Nice. Is the relationship where I want it to be? No. You know, but I know that deep down inside, I know I'm not the person that I used to be, you know, and I know that eventually down the road, the relationship will be better.
What did your amends process look like?
So when I went and did my amends with my daughter, like my other two children, they took it. They, you know, my son carries my 24-hour chip in his wallet, literally. My 19-year-old, she comes and supports me at meetings and everything. But my 18-year-old, my youngest, the one that I lost to DCS, she had heard it all. You know, like the other two, they didn't get dragged through a lot. She's seen a lot more than her other brother and sister. So coming to her and doing an amends with her, it was like, I've heard all your bullshit already. So I just had to tell her, like, listen, like, I know what I've done. And my actions are going to speak louder than my words this time. You know, I can sit here and promise you that I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that. But I have to show you, because you're not going to believe me, because I've let you down so many times. She told me that she forgave me, you know, and I just tried to explain to her that mommy was sick, you know, and that mom made bad decisions while I was sick.
Just a quick commercial break. If you guys could hit the like and subscribe button, it would help our channel out a lot. Also, hit the bell icon so you can stay up to date with notifications when we post new content. Appreciate you guys watching the show. Sidebar, you can find highlights of this episode on our TikTok or Instagram. Just search Pinnacle Peak Recovery. Appreciate you. Back to the episode.
My biggest thing right now is working on forgiving myself, you know, and I can do meetings and stuff like that, but now I've seek some outside help and getting some therapy and stuff like that, because I do have so much guilt and so much shame, you know, from choosing men and choosing drugs over my kids. So yeah, I'm definitely going through the whole therapy thing now. And like I said, you know, 5.5 years sober, and you're learning new ways of coping with things.
For sure.
So,
how long have you been going to therapy?
So 3 months now, because I started marriage counseling. So I met my husband in 2019. I met him at the CA convention. And again, I was like out of the dating scene, like I wasn't looking for anything, and God placed this amazing man in my life, you know. We met in August of 2019. September, we made it official. October, we moved in together. In November, DCS came knocking at our door. And his baby's mom is one of us. And we got the opportunity to get his son. Oh, wow. And he was 3 at the time. And I'm like, oh my gosh. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, God's got jokes. Yeah, like, I had lost my children. Yeah. So how am I going to raise somebody else's kid?
Well, and it's just a 3-year-old.
Right.
It's a tough
my
age.
kids are all grown. So like,
Yeah.
how the fuck am I going to start over like this? And like came in like pull-ups and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
That's awesome though.
Yeah. And so we got the opportunity to get his son full time, and it was beautiful. You know, I'm not going to lie. Like, I fought it at first because, again, I have all this guilt and all this shame of like, I can't raise my own children. How am I going to raise somebody else's? And my sponsor looked at me and she's like, bitch, open your eyes and like realize that God is doing for you what you couldn't do for yourself. You've built this solid foundation and you've worked so hard that God is placing this kid in your life at the right time. His mom is sick and now you get to be there and step in.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I didn't look at it like that, you know? So I got this little boy, and like I said, he came in at the right time, and it really like settled me down, and I got to be the mom that I'm supposed to be, you know? And then my husband and I got married in November 7th, 2021. And, man, his daughter came out from Indiana and got to be our flower girl and a taste of what Arizona's like. And she went home and told her mom that she wants to live here. And so now I have a 7 and a 9-year-old. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know? And again, like, I'm fighting it because I'm like, I don't want to fuck these kids up. I fucked up mine, you know? And my sponsor walks me through it. And it's like, again, God's placing these kids in your life at the right time. And I'm like, okay, I see it, you know?
Yeah.
So
What's been the, share your experience on therapy so far?
So therapy's been good because I have a lot of like trauma from, you know, being
Yeah.
a kid and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's really, when I started therapy 3 months ago, we've started marriage counseling, you know, and it wasn't because our marriage was bad or anything like that. It was more like doing it so that we could communicate better.
Sure.
And I've never been in a healthy relationship. I've been with a man that beats the shit out of me. So like my husband is the most amazing man. He's the most genuine person, and he loves me unconditionally. And I don't know how to receive that love, you know? So it's teaching me how to receive that love and how to communicate in a healthy way with him. And it's also, you know, bringing up deep-rooted issues that I didn't address, you know, with the trauma that I have from losing my kids and stuff like that. So we do marriage counseling, and then I'm also doing some one-on-one therapy, which is good.
Yeah.
You know, you have to. You really do. And I take medication to level me out a little bit. You know, we've self-medicated for so many years that sometimes you have to seek outside help, and it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
No, yeah, it's definitely okay. I do as well. Take medication for anxiety and depression, and then I go to therapy weekly, and I have for a while now, like several years, and it's a really cool experience to like kind of connect dots from my childhood on why I behave the way I do, or put up walls, or have physical reactions to things, and just being able to like connect those dots. It's a really cool like journey that just doesn't end.
Yeah.
So that's why I was curious, like, what your experience has been so far.
Well, and honestly, like, I mean, where I work at Art of Our Soul, like being around Brandon and his, he's really pushed me into going to therapy and dealing with those deep-rooted issues, because his biggest thing is if you don't take care of that stuff, you're going to bleed onto others.
Yeah.
And I don't want to bleed onto my husband. Like, my husband loves me like I've never been loved before, and that man worships the ground I walk on. He would do anything for me. And sometimes things that he does like triggers me, but he's not doing it like maliciously or,
Sure.
you know. And I'm just learning how to accept his love,
Yeah.
because sometimes I still don't feel like I deserve it, you know? So therapy is definitely opening my eyes and making me realize that, you know, I am enough, and I do deserve this life.
Yeah. And I'll just double down on that. Yeah, you definitely deserve it. You got a crazy story with a lot of, just seems like it was a long time that you were suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
What's been the best part of recovery?
Honestly, meeting my husband.
Yeah.
You know, like how that whole full circle intertwined, getting my children back in my life. Like I don't have physical custody of my kids, but I have a relationship with them today.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a beautiful thing. And I'm okay with, you know, not having, I mean, they're grown now, 22, 19, and 18. You know, the last one is, my youngest is about to go to college at GCU. And
Nice.
yeah, so, and just being able to, you know, be a sponsor and walking women through these steps, and like that light clicking on, and you know, them seeing like, I'm not a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And I made bad decisions, but I get to walk them through some ugly things, you know.
And use your experience to help them. Yeah.
And that's why I say, like, I know now, going back to like the hotel and waking up and being pissed off that I'm not dead, like I know why I'm here now.
Yeah.
I know my purpose in life is to be here to help other alcoholics and addicts. My job, like I worked in behavioral health for 5 years, and now I get to do art therapy, and completely different from what I was used to, you know, but even though I'm not in the behavioral health field anymore, I'm still in it in a different way.
Yeah.
And this art therapy is like, it's a whole other level, you know, and the joy that I get to see with these clients coming in and just, you know, creating this masterpiece, you know, like the guys from Crossroads, they're coming in and they're making this painting for their daughter or their son that they're going to see on the weekend, and just their light, you know, the light shining, and they're just so excited about this masterpiece that they made. And that's where it's all at.
Yeah, that is where it's at.
It is.
What's your message to someone who's struggling, that's thinking about getting into recovery?
Listen, it doesn't matter where you've come from or what you've done. You can do anything you put your mind to. You just have to take that first leap, you know, that first step. And that's a big thing in my life, is that I have a plethora of resources. You know, anybody reaches out, I will make sure to help you. I'll give you the shirt off my back. If my ex called me tomorrow and was like, listen, I know I fucked up and I did some bad shit to you, but I want to get sober, I will find you a place to go. And people get scared, you know, I get it, but we've all been there. You just got to take that leap. Like, people are dying left and right now. It's heartbreaking. I'm 5 years sober, and I've been to 55 funerals since I got sober, you know. It's heartbreaking. I just went to one last weekend. Like, there's a solution out there. And that's the whole thing, is that I wish people would see the whole picture. And sometimes I want to strangle them, you know, and kick them in the head sometimes and be like, you don't have to live like this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's a lot of freedom with just surrendering and reaching out and taking that first step. I've had the opportunity to scholarship 2 of my friends from high school that I grew up with, getting high with, stole from them. They stole from me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that whole relationship. We're just sick and in our addiction. And so one of them I saw, just based on his Facebook behavior, that, all right, he's kind of fucked up in the head.
You know what he's doing.
Yeah, like just based on the posts. And so I reached out to him. And he came out here, got sober, and then my other buddy, this was more recent, he reached out to me, and I was like, yeah, dude, come on out, and set him up. And he's sitting in residential. He's detoxing from, he was actually coming off of Suboxone.
Okay.
And he, in addition to a plethora of other stuff. And I was like trying to explain to him like what my life looks like in 12-step recovery.
Yeah.
Like treatment's a great place to build a foundation, separate yourself from the environment, and then do the therapy work that we're talking about.
Right.
To get to these like really deep seated trauma and core issues, but you got to have a plan after. And so I'm kind of talking to him, trying to get him excited about like what life could look at like after. I'm like, dude, we're sitting in this room together, his room at our residential center. I'm like, imagine this great life is just like right outside of this door, and all you got to do is open the door and go out there. But you're sitting in here and just saying, I'm just not sure if I want to go through that door. And it's just like I could relate with you so much when you just want to like, dude, just go through the door.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me just push you,
Because it's just like, it's right there.
Yeah.
And if me or you could do it, like anybody
can do it.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. And, like the hardest is, watching a sponsee. Like I have my first sponsee ever. And I've been her sponsor since I was 6 months sober, and like going through jail and prison with her and everything, like watching her just self-sabotage, like you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but then you just like, you can't do it.
Yeah.
And you can't do it for them. So this is another thing like I'm dealing with my other sponsee right now, is the fact of like her husband can't stop getting high. You know what I mean? You can't do the recovery for him. You can't put more in than he's willing to put in.
Yeah.
And that's hard, It really is, because that there's a solution. You do see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
But they don't see it yet.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you can't do it for them.
For sure.
So.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. That was awesome.
Yes, thank you so much.